Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're finishing off the 8th chapter of the 2nd canto, entitled Questions by King Perdikit. Text number 28 is on the board. We'll be speaking on 28 and 29. Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahma Kalpa Upagate Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate. Chant, please. Praha Bhagavatam Nama
Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate
Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate. Anyone else? Praha. He said. Bhagavatam. The science of the personality of Godhead. Nama, of the name. Puranam, the supplement of the Vedas. Brahma Samhitam, just in pursuance of the Vedas. Brahmane, unto Lord Brahma. Bhagavat Proktam, was spoken by the personality of Godhead. Brahmakalpe, the millennium in which Brahma was first generated. Upagate, just in the beginning. Translation. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Pariksit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of the personality of Godhead. The impersonalist always tries to misrepresent the personal feature of the Lord, not knowing the science of this great knowledge. And Srimad Bhagavatam is in pursuance of the Vedas and scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. To learn this science, one should take shelter of the representative of Sri Shukadev and follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Pariksit without foolishly attempting to interpret, thereby committing a great offense at the feet of the Lord. The dangerous ways of interpretations by the non-devotee class of men have played havoc in understanding the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the careful student should be always alert in this matter if he at all wants to learn the science of Godhead. Translation once again, please repeat. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Pariksit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunganidang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapidamina Bhutale Swayam Upakaramayam Dadati Swabadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Sutta Goswami is explaining to the sages at the Naimisharanya the questions by Maharaj Pariksit have concluded. And he asked a wide range of questions. Well, he asked questions on a wide range of topics. And some of them, I mean, in my opinion, are rather unusual considering the circumstance. He was the emperor of the entire planet. He was cursed to die within 7 days by a young, unqualified son of a Brahmana. And he accepted that curse upon himself. He had the power to nullify the curse, but he took it as the blessing, mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he accepted it. And he literally walked away from his kingdom, his position as king of the entire planet, his wealth, his family, his prestige, all of his personal opulences and responsibilities. He just walked away from. Prabhupada said, just like when we go out into the field to pass stool, just walking away like that. We have no attachment to what we've left behind. And so Maharaj Pariksit, as the emperor of the world and a great devotee of the Supreme Lord, in the same fashion, he walked away from everything, simply to seek out what should I do at the end of my life? What should I hear? What should I remember? What should I think about? Who and what should I pray to and for? Like this. And the word of his situation spread very quickly all throughout the universes. And great and powerful sages came from higher planets to this earth planet to be with Maharaj Pariksit during this last week of his life, because they wanted to know, they wanted to hear. And into this greatest, and many, there's thousands of great sages, so all levels of transcendentalists, the Brahmavaris, the Gyanis, the Yogis, the devotees, pure devotees, they assembled because they wanted to witness this highly unusual situation. And by the arrangement and grace and mercy of the Supreme Personality of God, that Shukadeva Goswami walked into that assembly. Sutta Goswami was there to hear. And he says earlier in this canto, I heard with rapt attention the message given by Shukadeva Goswami. And thereby, by his mercy, I am able to repeat to you what I have understood, what I have assimilated from the great sage Shukadeva Goswami. And Prabhupada explains that simple hearing is not enough. One has to hear with rapt attention. And what does rapt attention mean? Just like we have an incandescent light bulb, it uses, let's say, 100 watts of electricity. 95 of those watts are dissipated in heat, and only 5-10% actually give light. And the light goes in all directions. And it's quite weak. But you take that same 100 watts and you focus it as a 100-watt laser, and it's able to cut things, it's able to burn through things, because it's focused. So hearing with rapt attention is like that laser. All of our senses are totally absorbed in hearing. None of the other senses are active. All the life energy is focused on simply hearing and drinking the nectar through the ears into the heart. And when we hear like this, Srila Prabhupada writes in the first canto, I believe it's the 3rd chapter, the very last verse, that if we hear like this with rapt attention, we will be able to see Lord Krishna himself personally on every page of Bhagavatam. Every page. We'll see the Lord himself. So, Sutta Goswami is explaining here that Shukadeva Goswami began to reply to the numerous questions offered by his disciple, King Pariksit. But he first of all began by saying that the knowledge of the personality of Godhead is a science. And Prabhupada uses that word science, scientific, in the verse and in the purport probably 4 or 5 different times. And for those of us who are not trained and educated in the bhakti cult, the science of devotional service, the word science, the word God, and the word love, you can put them all in the same sentence and it doesn't seem to make any sense. But that's a material understanding. Factually, they belong together. Science, love, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are intimately connected. In fact, they really have no meaning, no complete meaning, separate from one another. So just like the Lord himself spoke the Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma, one of Lord Brahma's name is Atmabhu, meaning he was not born, and Prabhupada used it, he speaks like that. Let me see, in the purport, I believe. Anyhow, Prabhupada says somewhere that Lord Brahma was generated from the Lord. Not exactly from the Lord, but by the Lord. And he has no mother. Atma Bhu, he has no mother. He just has a father, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the position of Lord Brahma, it's one of great, great responsibility. Because Lord Brahma is the father of all species of life within this universe. And just as the father's responsibility, of course as fathers you have many responsibilities, but the main one is to see to the benefit and welfare of the children. And Lord Brahma, as the original father of all different species of life, he is known as the secondary creator, where an expansion of Krishna is the primary creator. Lord Brahma was given the responsibility of creating the various species of life and the principles of actions and interactions and so many different things. So very, very great responsibility, a very highly elevated personality. And sometimes when there's not a jiva, a living entity, who is qualified to assume that level of responsibility within a particular universe, the Lord himself will take up that role, and he will incarnate himself as Brahma. But here in this particular universe, we have a Brahma who is not an incarnation of the Lord, but he's a jiva, but highly advanced. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead originally delivered the Vedic knowledge to him. And the Srimad Bhagavatam that we have, 18,000 verses. When the Lord spoke it to Lord Brahma, 4 verses. And Lord Brahma was able to fully understand what we endeavored greatly, and at least I myself failed to understand 18,000 verses. Lord Brahma himself understood in just 4 shlokas. And so that was the Lord's first activity with Brahma, and Brahma took that knowledge very, very seriously, and he explained it to his son, Narad Muni. And Narad Muni became a very, very great and powerful sage who still exists today, traveling throughout the universe, simply teaching the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam to anyone and everyone who is prepared to actually accept it and receive it. So Sutta Goswami says in this verse, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, meaning it's not, strictly speaking, is not one of the, well originally it was 3 Vedas, and a 4th one was expanded. It's technically speaking not one of the 3 or 4 Vedas, but it is supplementary to them, meaning it fully supports what the Vedas say. There's nothing that is contradictory, and it expands upon the knowledge given in the 4 Vedas. Because the 4 Vedas, they were compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, who is an incarnation of Krishna, but he did not promote definitively the process of pure devotional service in the Vedas. Indirectly, he alluded to it, but he did not purely and strictly promulgate it and expand upon it. And after compiling the Vedas, he was feeling in his heart, he was feeling very dissatisfied. And his guru, spiritual master, Narad Muni, came to him and said that the reason that you are despondent, you've done a humongous service to humanity by compiling and writing the Vedic literature. But the reason you're not satisfied is because you did not specifically glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead in service to Him. And this is the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami, by the dictation of Chaitya Guru, the Lord in the heart, was directed to the assembly where King Pariksit was with the great sages, simply for the purpose of delivering the Srimad Bhagavatam, this great science of who is God, who am I, what is my relationship with God, what are the Lord's different energies, how does the creation take place, in material creation, what is it like in the spiritual world beyond the material creation, what are the living entities, what are the various species of life. All of this knowledge and so much more was delivered by Shukadeva Goswami to the Emperor Pariksit based on answering the questions that he just concluded asking in this chapter. Questions by King Pariksit. Now imagine you're in this situation. You found out from your doctor or from whoever that you only have a few days to live. Okay? You're going to die by the end of the week. How will you spend your time? How will you spend your energy? What will you think about? What will you talk about? Who will you want to be with? This is exactly what the emperor did. He walked away from his kingdom and all of his family members and all of his wealth, and he went to a holy place, and other sages and saintly people accumulated around him, and he posed many questions to his spiritual master, Shukadeva Goswami. And he was asking questions and listening to the replies with focused attention, that he was not afflicted by thirst, he was not hungry, he was not sleepy. All of this energy, his life and energy was simply focused on revealing his heart to his spiritual master by asking him these different questions and by intently hearing from Shukadeva Goswami. So Prabhupada is speaking in the purport that we have to have a similar approach to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to hear from the proper representative, and we have to hear with the proper personal qualifications, rapt attention. So we'll go on to the last verse. I will read the Sanskrit. Yad yat parikshid rishabha pandunam anupritshati anupurvyena tatsat sarvam akyatum upachakrame. Translation. He also prepared himself to reply to all that King Pariksit had inquired from him. Maharaj Pariksit was the best in the dynasty of the Pandus, and thus he was able to ask the right question, from the right person. Purport. Maharaj Pariksit asked many questions, some of them very curiously, to know things as they are. But it is not necessary for the master to answer them in the order of the disciples' inquiries, one after the other. But Shukadeva Goswami, experienced teacher that he was, answered all the questions in a systematic way as they were received from the chain of disciplic succession, and he answered all of them without exception. So important points Srila Prabhupada is making here, that we have to approach a qualified person, a qualified spiritual master, with our sincere inquiries about the nature of the Lord, the nature of God, to get scientific knowledge of God, to get scientific knowledge of even myself, who am I? Because we're thinking we're these bodies, but we're not. We're spirit soul giving life to this lump of matter. And when the spirit soul, when we are removed from this body, we commonly call that death. But death only pertains to the body, it does not pertain to me, the spirit soul. We are eternal. We are full of knowledge, we are full of ecstasy, complete happiness. But because we're thinking on this body, therefore our pure consciousness it's covered, it's polluted. And so we're not able to access our true godly nature. And so the purpose of this human form of life is to achieve that knowledge, to reawaken our dormant love for God that's in our heart, and reawaken, reawaken our loving relationship with Krishna. It's there. We have a relationship with Him, but we've forgotten what it is. The relationship has been broken, just like when a son runs away from home. His father is extremely wealthy, but he leaves. That relationship is interrupted. But when the son wants to return home, the father welcomes him with open arms, and immediately the relationship is reestablished. So the purpose of this human form of life is exactly that, to once again turn towards God, Krishna, dedicate our life energy to pleasing Him. When the Lord is pleased, automatically we are pleased. But the contrary is not true. It's because we try to please ourselves doesn't mean that the Lord is pleased. So if we actually want to become happy, we have to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the perfection not just of this life, but of our very existence. So Prabhupada is speaking in the purport that we have to approach a bona fide spiritual master with our sincere questions. And the spiritual master, he's not obligated to answer the questions necessarily in the order in which they were asked, but he does answer all of them. Whatever question we put before our spiritual master, he will, sooner or later, answer it. But he gives us the important things first. And of all of the questions that King Parikshit asked, let me see. Oh, wrong chapter. I believe it's number 4. No. And I can't find which verse it is. It's one of the earlier verses. Ah, here it is. Text number 7 in this chapter. King Parikshit asked this question, amongst many questions. The transcendental spirit soul is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this, for it is known to you? The emperor is asking this question to Shukadeva Goswami. In other words, how did we acquire this material body? And of all the questions that the emperor put before Shukadeva Goswami, this is the one that his spiritual master chose to answer first. And it's in tomorrow's verse, the first verse of the next chapter. So it is not, the spiritual master is not obligated to reply to the questions necessarily in order in which they're presented, but he determines what is most important of the questions that were put before him. And so he answers them all, but he will answer them in the order that he chooses. And the last point that Srila Prabhupada makes in this purport, that the answers, the statements coming from the spiritual master, the pure devotee of the Lord, are all in according to the disciplic succession, the parampara. In other words, we don't make anything up. You will never hear a spiritual master or a pure devotee say, I think, or as far as I know, or I believe. No, he doesn't speak like that because he has perfect knowledge, complete knowledge of the personality of Godhead. And he speaks on that basis. He doesn't give his own opinion. He doesn't give his own interpretation. But he replies according to the disciplic succession, that's one. But also he replies according to his realization of the knowledge that he has received through the chain of disciplic succession through his spiritual master. And Prabhupada says that we should not repeat like a parrot. We should not chant like a parrot. A parrot has no knowledge about what it is he's saying. He can articulate things perfectly. It's amazing you hear a parrot. They can just repeat perfectly. Perfect diction, pronunciation. But they have no understanding of what it is they're saying. So not that type. But we have to have understanding and realization according to the subject matter that we're speaking of. So that is the responsibility of all of us when we are teaching the knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedic literatures. That we have heard properly from the proper source. We perform proper austerities by following the instructions of the spiritual master. We have rendered service to try to please the pure devotees of the Lord. And by those processes, we're able to, I'll use the word digest, assimilate the knowledge so that we have some realization within our heart. And we speak on that basis. And Sutta Goswami, who was speaking these two verses, he said that earlier in the first canto when he was welcomed by Shanaka Rishi, who was the head of the sages in Naimishranya. He said, I will try to speak what I have heard according to what I have realized. And Shanaka Rishi was ecstatic to hear that. And so he welcomed, yes, please, guide this assembly of sages. So we have to hear from the proper source. We have to hear with proper qualifications. We have to assimilate it. And we have to understand the Vedic literature and the supplementary Vedic literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. And we have to try to understand the information, the science, the knowledge that is presented and given to us from those sources. And try to just mold our life around that knowledge. And if we're able to do so, Prabhupada says that we can go back home, back to Godhead in this very lifetime. And that should be our individual goal. Not wait for another lifetime because we do not know what birth we will take next. Some people have the misconception that, well, you only go up. You only take a higher birth. You never take a lower, but that's misconception. Just like in school, somebody can fail third standard and have to take it again, or even have to go down to second standard. It's like that. That's not normal, but it does happen. So we have to, Prabhupada said, make sure that you dedicate your life energy to trying to please the Supreme Lord Krishna and perfect your life now in this very lifetime. Don't wait for future lifetimes. So I will stop there. Any comments or questions?
I have a 5-year-old, and this is a question that it even...
Could you take your mask off to speak? Could you start over? Yeah, just start over, because I couldn't understand the beginning.
I have a 5-year-old, and it's crossed the touch my mind the same question several times, especially with a lot of people who who are not followers of ISKCON, other types of religions, a lot of people say, you know, we don't believe in worshiping idols. And my approach kind of was the way that I kind of was raised, and I was like, you know, everything is symbolic. Even the crucifix is an idol. It's a symbol. It's a symbolism. I feel like that context has been taken to kind of tarnish Krishna consciousness and our beliefs with the deities. Because I know my mom, she does say that every day to Laddu Gopal. And that's really hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. Why is she bathing this doll? Why is she doing this? Why is she feeding him food? What is this? And for me, the gift for me was that self-consciousness of just offering everything that I do. So every time I eat anything, it just becomes natural to me now just to quickly do a Shanti pot and a bhojan pot before I put it in my mouth. So I'm trying to teach that to my kids. But like with this concept of idol worshiping, how can we educate our generation, younger generations, and future generations, as well as outside of Hinduism? That word idol.
Good question. I got you.
Yeah.
Have you ever written a check at the post office?
Okay.
Have you ever written a check, gone to the post office
Yeah.
and written a check?
Yeah.
Who is the check written out to?
The state or.
No.
Or,
The Postmaster General.
okay.
It's a person.
Okay.
Your check isn't made payable to the post office. It's not made payable to the postal system. You write it out to the Postmaster General. It's a person, it's a position. And then he's the top, or she, is the top person in charge of all the postal system. And then you've got your different post offices with all the personnel. And then you've got your steel post office box in the street corner. Now, if you deliver your letter, suppose the Postmaster General is your brother. You can give the letter to him. Not many people are able to do that. You can take your letter to the post office, or you can put your letter in this steel box on the corner. And the exact same destination you'll achieve either way. So the deity is not, it's not an idol. It's actually Krishna himself. Okay, actually Krishna himself. But the mailbox, it's made of material elements. There's nothing personal about it. But we have full faith. I put my letter in the post box, and it's going to go to wherever it's meant to go to.
That's so true. Wow, that's a good analogy. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's a great question. Anyone else?
In the age of Kali Yuga, Maharaj Prashad did this, quite a number of years ago, 500 years ago.
5,000.
In the age of Kali Yuga, detachment is difficult, and so we still want to be Krishna consciousness. We are constantly trying to be Krishna consciousness, but we can't be totally absent of detachment. So in the age of Kali Yuga, what is the most practical way?
Chanting Hare Krishna?
Chanting Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. That is the mercy of the Supreme Lord Krishna given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself. Nityananda is Lord Balaram himself. Those two, Krishna and Balaram, incarnated as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. They're not different. And because they know exactly what you just said, that it's very difficult in Kali Yuga to make any type of spiritual advancement because we have so many disqualifications. And it's stated in the first chapter of Bhagavatam, that we're lazy, we're unlucky, we're misguided, we're misdirected, we're always disturbed. And so how can we, plus, well, that's on the one hand. On the other hand, on another side, we've got the material energy which is always trying to grind us down. Threefold miseries: adhyatmic, adhibautic, adhidaivic. Miseries from this material body: oh, I'm feeling ill, I got a headache. Miseries from other, from people or from insects and, flies, mosquitoes. And from higher powers: drought, famines, floods, fires. So we're always being afflicted these different manners, these threefold miseries, the disqualifications in Kali Yuga, plus our mind is uncontrolled and pushing us here and there. What chance do we have? That's why the Lord came and simply said, chant this Hare Krishna mantra. Because that is the medicine for this Kali Yuga. It's not deity worship, it's not sacrifice, it's not meditation like we're in other yugas. In this Kali Yuga, because we're just so unfortunate, Krishna has made it easy. And still we have difficulty in doing even that. That's our great misfortune. But somehow or another, like you said, we have to try. We have to always be trying. And we have to take association of others who are also trying. Because we get strength in numbers. Sankirtan Prabhu.
I also would like to give a little more perspective on your thought about the idol, because that's a very important concern, actually, and we have to understand this very thoroughly, and actually to be able to see, in different religions, every temple or church or mosque, synagogue, it's referred to as the house of God. So when you think about the house of God, you would expect God to be living in the house. And actually, God is living in the house. And in the Vedic tradition, that vision is very real. Here, Krishna is living in the house of God. So once in 1975, I was in Chicago. Prabhupada was giving a talk. There was an Indian gentleman there, and he asked Prabhupada, "Can you show me God?" He wanted to get some mystical vision, but Prabhupada wouldn't give him that mystical vision. And he turned to the devotees, and he said, "Please take this gentleman down to the temple." He said, "There you can see God directly." So Prabhupada has that firm understanding that when you walk into the temple, yes, you enter into the presence of God. And even in the Bible, on Mount Sinai, when Moses came upon the burning bush, which was also a manifestation of God, we understand in the Vedic tradition, there's the Agnihotra, the fire sacrifice, where we invoke the presence of God. And Moses, as he approached, he was told, "Take off your shoes. You're entering into sacred ground." So there's a lot of hints in different traditions. And so we shouldn't be intimidated by the general society, because everybody has their own particular kind of awkward things that people do, that they bring flowers to a grave. Sometimes people are bringing food to a grave, and so when the people bring flour to the grave and they look at the people bringing food to a grave, they think that's bizarre. But why bring the flower to the grave as well? And so even in the Islam, you know, there's everyone is encouraged to go to Mecca to circumambulate the Kaaba. And there, the Kaaba is the black rock. And as one circumambulates the Kaaba, then at some time or other, everyone is encouraged to kiss the black rock. And also in the Jewish religion, which is also very much adamantly opposed to worship of some idol, when they bring the Torah off of the altar, very often in very wealthy Jewish temples, that just like we put a crown on Krishna, they're also putting a crown on Torah. And they're wrapping valuable cloth around the Torah to decorate the Torah, just like we're decorating Krishna very beautifully on the altar. And so when they bring the Torah up and down the aisle in the synagogue, everybody bows down and they kiss the cloth of the Torah. So in every tradition, you might have things that are going on that an outsider won't necessarily understand fully. But a devotee, the Vaishnavas, because they have a more intimate experience of God, they can go into any house of worship and feel totally comfortable. Somebody is bowing down before the Torah, or kissing a black rock, or bowing down before a cross. And some people walk into these different situations and they're kind of strange. But a Vaishnava sees God being worshipped in whatever capacity, in any situation. So this requires a little bit of a deeper understanding and a deeper knowledge. So that's what Prabhupada wants to bestow upon the world.
Thank you, Sankar, for elaborating on that. Also, another point came to my mind when you were speaking. The word idol, it actually means that it's something I made from my own mental speculation. Just like going back to the analogy of the mailbox. You can't just put any box on the street and say, well, this is a mailbox. No, there's regulations by the Postal Service. The size, the shape, the material, the location. And it's made specifically according to the rules and regulations. The same with deities. They're made very carefully according to, I think it's the Silpi Shastra, but there's a Shastra which describes the proportions, the form, the position of the hands, what it means, the position of the legs, the feet. It's according to higher authority. But when we either don't know about that higher authority or simply don't care about it, and we make something according to our own whims, that is an idol. Just like, you put a wooden box out and say U.S. mail, well, it's an idol from the perspective of the postal system. It's like that. Okay?
Makes sense. I never thought about it that basic, but it makes sense.
Good. I hope that helps. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So is Jai Krishna.